Welcome to Gillingham, the birthplace of the beautiful book inspired by 6 women who shook the world. It is the culmination of 1.5 years of our effort as a community to engage with the lives and the work of 6 extraordinary women who changed our world. Now, over the last couple of years, we've had over 2,500 people attend these events. And what sort of events have we had? Well, we've got the beautiful murals just around the corner from here. And if you haven't had a chance to visit them yet, I would definitely recommend them. And we've had a number of workshops, art workshops, writing workshops, science and technology workshops. We've had a series of talks. And now, look at what we've created, us as a community. Isn't it beautiful? Yes, and this is what we have created together. So I just want you to be so proud of what you have created, all of us together. We have engaged with the legacy of these women, and we've made it vibrant and new, and it's created in the way that we want to engage with these women. So not only have we engaged with the women and their legacy, but we have created a legacy of our own. So that's something, again, you should be very proud. So I'm very proud of everything that you've done. So now that we've got these beautiful books, what is going to happen to them? Well, obviously you've got your copies that we're going to be giving out some copies through Medway Libraries throughout the entirety of May, which is Local and Community History Month, which is why we're celebrating this today until we run out, because I'm sure these are going to go like hotcakes. So we're also going to have some copies available in our archives and in Medway Libraries. We're going to be sending copies to various libraries throughout the UK, to the British Library, there are a number of art galleries. We also have some other libraries with a personal connection to these women, possibly to some feminist libraries, and we'll also send a copy out to every school in Medway. So we also have a second book that we have created with all the school children of Medway, and that is being edited at the moment, and we're sending copies out to the schools in Medway as well, because we want to ensure that everyone continues to engage with the lives and work of these women, because the work they did was extraordinary. And also, who knows who's going to inspire the next generation, and who else will we find in our research. So there's not going to be any speaker tonight. We're going to have a series of people sharing their work. And if you don't want to read from the book, just speak a little bit about this project and what we need, but for a maximum of 5 minutes. So what we'll hear from tonight are people who have engaged with the lives and work of these women. And this work, for some people, it's the first time they've ever written, and possibly the first time they've ever performed. So I just want all of us to enjoy this, and the fact that we all have engaged in a modern, profound, personal and creative way. So without further ado, we're going to start off, and I've got this, as you can tell, modern technology. So I will read my poem first, and then we'll call up Barry Fenterman Hall. So my poem, my story to this is that I have lived in Medway pretty much all my life, and I lived in Gillingham. And I chose Sarah because she lived in the Palm Cottage in Canterbury Street, and this is where my mum was introduced to my dad. So I didn't realise that when I picked out the places. So anyway, the thing that really struck me about Sarah was how resilient she was. And this really came out when Setra Ebrahimi, she ran our creative writing workshop for Black History Month, and she really talked through Sarah's life. So this is what really struck me. So here we go. Song that lingers in the space between the lines, in the papers nestled above her piano, in the lines that construct the melody, the lines that constrict the beats. She is shaping a song somehow along the lines of whalebone, which constructs her waist into a lady's silhouette, constricts her belly and her breath, constructs her citadel against the fickle tides shaping her path, her life as constricted as if she were within the whale's belly with Jonah. She has learned to work the shifting tides, to sail lightly, adapt to the prevailing winds. Amobo Aina was a queen yet to be. Amobo Aina, Sarah, Etta, Ina, saved and condemned by the lines of her tribe's royal markings on her face, is familiar to cages. Amobo Aina, orphan, held for 2 years in a wicker basket by King Gizo, dressed all in white, the sacrifice to water the graves of his Dahomey ancestors, becomes instead a gift to Queen Victoria, delivered by Captain Forbes and HMS Bonetta. She holds the memory close. If she sings of them, it is only to the soft silence of the night. On board the Bonetta, Amobo Aina becomes Sarah. Amobo Aina, Sarah, Etta, Ina. The princess dresses warmly for her visits with Queen Victoria. The fires are lit for her and her delicate lungs at Windsor. Steel stays replace whalebone, but the cage remains. So the princess forges the cage into masts, transforms her stays into rigging. She is the captain of her ship, the queen of her soul. Amobo Aina, Sarah, Etta, Ina, survivor, pioneer, resolute in her course, stays clear-sighted within her citadel, her ship. The Bonetta, ready to set sail and to fly alongside the spindrift, to dance along the tides before she lays anchor at the Palm Cottage. Any sailor's fate is to keep moving. Any rest is temporary. Another name is just another port, a courtesy to others for civil discourse. In her later life, the princess signs herself Etta, signs her name Ina, and so she is her mother's daughter, and she will keep singing. She is Amobo Aina, she is Sarah, she is Sally, she is Etta, she is Ina. Her song resounds. Amobo Aina, Sarah, Etta, Ina. Thank you very much. So I'd like to call to the stage Barry Fentman Hall. And while he's coming along, I just want to point out that he is someone along with the lovely Sam Fentman Hall, who is the creator of the River Lit Fest, our first beautiful, wonderful literature festival from Medway. And absolutely, lots of events coming up for that. So Barry is a Medway-based poet who has been widely published in journals in Britain, Europe and North America. His last full collection, Sketches, was published by Wordsmithery in 2020. Wordsmithery, a fine publisher. He is the editor of Confluence magazine and co-director of Medway River Lit and Raynham Poetry Festival. If you'd like to follow along, we are going on song sheet, page number 22.
Thank you, Sarah. I like the idea of there being a song sheet. You can all join in if you want to. Sarah mentions Sam Fentman Hall, who wrote a wonderful play a while back called My Mind is Free, which was about trafficked people. And as soon as I got to know the story of Sarah Forbes Bonetta, as they called her, I could only see her in that light, to be honest, when you look at the story of it. In many ways it saved her life, but in many ways it sort of did some other things to her as well. So anyway, this is called Enya. If I murder any pronunciations in this, I apologise in advance. Okay, Enya. A name inspired by the circumstances of birth whispered in the ears of mothers seeking guidance will be remembered forever. A blood thing that speaks the future from whatever the next heaven, hot noose about the neck, breath will not come easy. A victory forgotten in the bargain of a gift given, to be named after a ship is at least better than a burning. So sail her if you think you can. Dahomey bodies, valued in cowrie shells, take on the buyer's name at market. making the best of an overcast sunrise the way that slaves do. The mud rain of Medway is drink for the Christian soul, they tell her. Your queen throws a bride's bouquet, and she should catch it, you say. She must learn to love her husband as she learned to love your God. They held hands for photographs, and she gained yet another name. But old poetry does not forget. A Ricky speaks between your lines. Her tongue is not forbidden. Her spirit rides a chariot. It lies faithful in the heart unknown, mummified in whalebone and wool, tight around her heavy chest that has to work so hard here. To breathe was never easy for the girl with the cord around her neck. Her lungs would be her death. But with her last, know this. She was named for the wife of Abraham. She was named for a three-mast brigantine. She was named for a man who found her. She was named for a man she married. But her name was always Princess Omoba Aina. Eni tia ko gabodo na. Thank you.
Thank you. With all due respect to Sarah, we mean it in good faith, even though we do kind of not quite get the pronunciation right, but there we go. All of us, I didn't. Anyway, so Timothy, would you like to read some of your poems? We've got that. We've also got one or two. While Timothy's picking out his material, I'll read out his biography. Timothy Green is currently studying art and languages with the Open University. He has no shortage of inspiration, but he wanted to extend and use grammar more creatively. He cannot quote directly with regard to the group and the material taught, but can say that he was inspired generally by the feel of the poems he studied and was able to transfer that inspiration into the poems. So would you like to come up? That's wonderful.
Hi, good evening. This one's called Tide Wash My Days. That's page 107. You show yourself as my washing bath, cleaning, bleeding, needing a source. Colours of brilliant and eternal fact, calmly blinding my realms of detachment. Painted in my mind my spiritual father, binning my masking balaclava, and showing my special need, a need to breathe, my tongue rolling behind my teeth. Sweet to the point of love and ecstasy, I recommend them both. Let us be whom we are meant to be. The sea, like my veins, travelling by waves, but what you do not see, the undercurrents, sweeping you off over your feet, and dipped in a royal pool of friends, royal above the royals, that lead that crowd embroiled in change. This one's called My World. Disenfranchised for my former lover, now enchanted by my cover-up. The scene now set for my vetted appearance, to a scene that is oh so simple to me. Calmly breaking into a song, under my breath I sing along. In me, your servant that you see, my earnest and loving Father is He, sent to bring us from the brink of darkness and misery. Cast down your thrones, lay down your crowns, together we make a dismount from here. Abate your crafty roles, over and above the moles that tunnel away. They are in sync with the world of today. We pray it changes now, because we know you can and will. Separate us from this, we are your witnesses, to declare through all ages.
So I believe those two pieces were inspired by Rosemary, weren't they? That's wonderful. Excellent. Right, so now we move on to Kathleen Courtney, our wonderful suffragist and peace campaigner, the one who was born on Marlborough Road. So she was awarded the UN Peace Medal in 1972. So the two people we're going to have next are going to be Jess Dallas, and then after Jess has read her poem, we're going to have Sam Rapp. So Jess, are you here tonight? Wonderful. Come on up, Jess. So wonderful. Now Jess has written what's called an acrostic. And it's on page 41. And just to tell you how wonderful Jess is, Jess Dallas is an aspiring author, having her work published across other collections such as mini monologues across Medway, Echoes of Silence, and your very own marvellous Medway. A lover of books, she enjoys reading in her free time and working at her local library. So come on over, Jess.
Hi, this is a poem I wrote about Kathleen. It's called Kathleen, a Suffragist. Page 41. Kindness, not action. Together hate leaves. Equity and equality across nations.
So, thank you very much, Jess. I am looking forward to reading more of Jess's work. So, the next person we're going to have along will be Sam Rapp. So, Sam is the dyslexic poet. She is a neurodiverse writer who raises awareness about non-visible disabilities. Sam's company of Fun with Words Productions Publishing conducts creative workshops for all abilities. Sam has featured in various anthologies, magazines, media, and performed the amazing dyslexic poetry show at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. Sam's book, Rant Dyslexic Me, is about her journey with dyslexia. And if you're interested, it's page 42. And Sam is actually editing the book for children. So, Sam, would you like to come and read from your piece, please?
Thank you very much, and it's lovely to see you all tonight. It's a great turnout. Firstly, I'm just going to briefly describe what I look like. I've got messy blonde hair. I'm a white woman with mixed heritage, and I'm wearing wacky trousers of different colours. I use this because I can't read on black on white, so this helps me read. Hi, Kathleen. I remember when I was 8 years old, holding hands with my grandmother. Her name was Eileen. We would walk along the narrow footpath where rich blackberries protruded, navigating round the sharpness of the plants, being careful not to prick my hand from the temptation of ripe fruits. As I reached to grab them, we walked by Brighton Racecourse. You could smell the horses and hear them munching on hay as our feet were moved by the galloping thunder of hooves, hitting mud and splattering on grass as their legs flew in the air. We'd go back to her one-bedroom council flat on a hill next to the old workhouse, now a general hospital for the ill. And I would play outside and laugh and I felt like a rebel, getting dirty with grass stains on my clothes, rolling down the steep, slippery banks in a race with a friend I just met. My grandmother shouted to me, "Come in now for your tea." I could smell the richness of cooked blackberries and thick cream, temptation sitting in a bowl on an old side table that had seen better days. As a girl, I had freedom. As a young teenager, I was given a choice to be educated As an adult, I could vote, choose what to wear, live independently, purchase property, and strive for equality, as the world had slowly changed. From protests like the Dagenham campaign, now we have female members of parliament, which had been unheard of in your day, Kathleen. I just wanted to say thank you, Kathleen, for your campaigns as a suffragist, your personal battles that brought about women's liberty, aiding all with your efforts for change. You, a lone woman from Gillingham, with peace in your heart. With the onslaught of World War I, you wish to build bridges for all communities, at home and internationally, as chair of the suffragist movement with a band of women, a leading light of a league of women lobbying the male establishment in Parliament, on votes for women to end discrimination, and with her, women to be heard. You were awarded the United Nations Peace Medal. A woman for change, a voice for the voiceless. Through your lobbying, your cause was heard in Parliament, which would finally concede. Your life so full despite your youth and because of what you did with others following you. There are now stepping stones of hope as we at last gained the vote. Kathleen was a pacifist and just wanted to have peace, spreading a blanket of hope for daughters for the future. With peace and equality, your legacy, a woman from Gillingham in Kent. Thank you.
That was wonderful. Thank you very much, Sam. So we move on to our next woman, which is Verena Holmes. So we will have Laurice, Stanley, Sam Hall, and then Richard. And Laurice is a current second-year undergraduate student at the University of Kent, studying business and management. Laurice took a literature course for her A-levels and fell in love, don't we all? Ever since then, her work has been published in online youth magazines, and she is now an editor for her university's student publication. So, Laurice, please do come up.
Hi, everyone. So I have a little poem titled Dear Verena, and it was inspired by a workshop that I attended that was led by Sarah, and we learned about her and her work and these letters that she wrote to her best friend Nancy, and because Verena is an engineer, she reminded me a lot of my mom, who's also an engineer, and in a way I think that definitely made me feel connected to her and closer to my mom by learning more about Verena. Because my mom's an engineer, but I never really had that connection with that part of her and her career. I'm going to read that out. It's page 60. Verena, an engineer by day, writer by night, to her favorite correspondent, she's just like me today. Dear Verena, it's been 75 years since the engineering firm in Gillingham deployed a women-only policy, and 17 from the day the university welcomed people like me. Verena, you were born 132 years before I ever stepped foot on British soil. And Verena, did you know you graduated 76 years before my mom did, just 2 islands with 3 continents in between. Verena, you hold my mother's degree too. I thought of her fondly when I met you. Verena, you are what we call proudly a woman in STEM. And dear Mama Senna, did you know she lived 75 years till her last breath? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, that was one of the wonderful workshops that we had at Gillingham Library while I was in attendance. It was Maria McCarthy, who can take the credit for that, really, and Helen Close, who is from the Women's Engineering Society. So they did an excellent job there. Hello, Maria. Hello, Bob. They are our editors for this book, and you're more than welcome to come up and speak if you would like, but don't feel obliged. The quality of their work speaks for itself. So anyway, Stanley, would you like to come up and say a few words? Now, Stanley is worked at GEC Avionics for 15 years as a tester. He studied sociology and creative writing at Brompton Academy, which is just up the road here from, it's in Marlborough Road, isn't it? So on the same road as Kathleen Courtney was born. This is linked with the University of Kent, 2013-2015, and achieved passes and achievements as his recognition and success. He has one previously published publication, a poem titled Emotions. So, Stanley, would you like to say a few words?
Yes. Thank you for all coming tonight. It's been a joy to be selected to be part of this experience, and it's been a journey for me. I'm going to read about my experience flying like Verena Holmes. One of the engineering achievements that Verena Holmes was associated with is the Moth Gypsy 1.85 HP aircraft, an historical aeroplane. Verena gained her pilot's licence on this aeroplane at Hertfordshire and at Essex Aero Club on 30th of November 1937. Verena's other engineering feats include patents to her name, including the Merlin engines of the Hurricane and Spitfire, aeroplanes used in World War II at the Battle of Britain. When I learned that Verena was involved with Moth Gypsy 1.85 HP as a part of her engineering contribution and as a pilot, my memory took me back to 57 years ago when I was 15 years old. At that time I was in a Church of England group named Pathfinders, and the leader was a curate of the church. He was an ex-jet fighter pilot in the RAF. His name was Joe Laville, and he had a contact that owned a hangar in the countryside, somewhere in the Tunbridge Wells area of Kent. One Saturday in the summer of 1965, Joe arranged for a tiger moth to come out of its hangar and get to the nearest landing strip. 4 or 5 of us made the journey to this landing strip and had the privilege of enjoying this adventure. When it came to my turn, I climbed aboard and sat in front. Joe sat behind and took control. The aircraft was beginning to move and started to rise. As we got to a certain height, Joe explained some of the sights that we flew over. To give the full experience of being in a tiger moth, Joe performed twists, turns and acrobatics before gently landing. To conclude this short story of a shared experience with Verena Holmes, what a magnificent, gifted engineer and inventor. Verena was a truly leader and inspiration to all women who followed her profession. The Tiger Moth was a spin-off of the Moth Gypsy 1-85 HP. Geoffrey de Havilland was the pioneering creator of both. And with this, my personal experience of going up and the movements of this Tiger Moth, which is a fabulous plane to be in, with the loop-de-loops spinning and spiralling, I'm honoured to be elected to be part of this publication and this evening. Thank you very much.
What I really love about this is that people have brought such personal experiences, and we've learned things that we wouldn't have otherwise. So I'd like to introduce Sam Hall up next. Sam is a marvellous writer and editor, and she has contributed in a very important way to the cultural life of Medway. Okay, Sam Hall is a writer who has been published in Epoch, Dark London, The Medusa Project, Light Trove, Emerging Worlds, and L'Inventor. Her plays have been performed in the UK, Italy, and USA. She has recently finished adapting her play about human trafficking, My Mind is Free, into a graphic novel. So, and for Sam Hall, if you'd like to read along, it's on page 62. Sam?
So basically, when I was researching this, I actually found out that I kind of had a lot of links to Verena Holmes, which was really quite surprising. So this is called Mytho-Engineering, and it's based on patents filed by Verena Holmes. And if you look on Google Patents, it's really fascinating, actually. You can just find out all about patents that have been filed for hundreds of years, so it is very fascinating. It quotes from her patents in the poem, and I'm going to put my hand up like this when I am reading the bits that are from her patents. Mytho-Engineering, applications filed by Verena Winifred Holmes. In a school in Bristol in 1978, I helped teacher cut paper for class using a guillotine that, in 2022, I would find out was invented by you in 1948 when you ran your factory in Gillingham. Improvements in and relating to apparatus for cutting paper and the like. GB 2740 24-8A. Supporting the material to be cut. A guard protects the fingers from the knife. The knife may be locked in the closed position by means of a padlock. In a house in Chatham in 2022, researching a poem, I would find that, in 1996, I lived in London in a flat above a pub, in the street next to where you lived when you filed your patents in 1932. And I walked past your house daily on my way to work for a short-lived magazine. Improvement in double beat valves, GB 63 90 32A, 137 Highbury New Park, London, March the 3rd, 1932. The use of such valve areas as will ensure true balance. There may be a gap completed by an insertion segment, tongue and groove engagement. In Long Beach, California, in 2022, the first woman certified to teach scuba diving, Dottie Frazier, died at the age of 99. In London, I wrote an article about Dottie for the magazine in 1996. In 1923, you thought of how diving gear, a diving dress of the rigid type, could work better. Improvements in diving dresses, GB 28 71 12 3A. A thrust collar is secured to the jacket by screws. The jacket carries a corselet E, to which helmet A is attached. Waterproof suit worn over the dress to prevent ingress of water. In 1988, in Bristol and Crawley, I was interested in photography. I brought a Praktica B200 35mm film camera with a 50mm lens and a Vivitar FD 28mm wide-angle lens. For a couple of years, I would record my life in grey, grainy images before the words overtook me. Perhaps it was the same for you. Making things better overtook everything else. Taking dollies apart to see how they worked. How Mama was annoyed. You looked at things on the earth, in the water, in the wind and on fire, saw the way the atoms fit together, saw how they could be improved, built something better. Thank you.
Beautifully read, Sam. So we're on to Richard now. Richard, if you'd like to make your way to the stage. Now, Richard will be reading from his piece on page 66, and let me introduce Richard. Richard Cooper is a retired computing science lecturer. He now spends his time researching the life of Gavin Brown Clark MP, curating the astonishing artistic and poetic legacy of his late wife, Rosemary Tonks, a beautifully talented artist, and writing fiction, stories and novels. And this is his second submitted story and his first publication. So, Richard.
Yeah, so I don't know any of the six women apart from Lorna Wing, and I don't know much about her, but I was attracted to Verena partly by her picture and the impressive work she did and the idea of having this engineering firm. And then I thought, who were the women who would join it? And I thought they would be the same age as my mother. and my mother didn't survive being brought up by quite the most wretched person I've ever met, who was my grandmother, a dreadful, dreadful woman. And I envisioned a woman with far more about her and being gifted who could survive such an upbringing. And I thought that both gave some validation to my mother and stuck it into my grandmother, quite frankly, So the start of it, the first two paragraphs are exactly autobiographical about my mother. I never knew what I'd done to deserve the way my mother treated me. Later, one of my son's girlfriends told me that Mum had said she irritated me since the moment she came out of the womb. I helped her with housework, cooked a bit, did the ironing, tried to make her life easier, and nothing helped. She hated me. My father tried to protect me as much as he could, but he was always quiet and wouldn't argue with her. He was one of a generation of men wrecked by the trenches, never able to talk about it or get over it. He met my mother when she nursed him after he came back injured. He got the impression of a kind, loving woman and spent the rest of his life discovering his mistake. And when my brother Paul was born and was the apple of her eyes, things got a lot worse. I was blamed for bad things he did, and he liked taking things out on me, knowing she would back him up always. Was happiest at school, where I did well, and the teachers liked that, and therefore me. I stayed in school as long as I could, rather than come home. So they expected a lot of Paul when he got there, because he was my brother. But he only disappointed. That made things even worse. When I took home better reports than him, my mother hated me all the more. It may be because my mother gave me a dreadful model of the feminine that I didn't take to girly things, rather preferring maths and sciences. Maths was easy, and the sciences were all interesting. No, I didn't want to learn to sew or cook. Instead, I was allowed to join the woodwork class, where I was one of only 2 girls. It was lovely making the wood into useful shapes. I also made small objects as presents for the family. But I found that it was even better working with metal. There was a garage down the street, and I used to wander down there on Saturdays and watch the work, eventually picking up a piece, being smooth and trying to do it myself. At first they were irritated with me and said I would only get dirty, and when they found out I could do this little chore and other things as well as they could, they let me get on with it. I bought a smock from a second-hand shop and had it over my clothes while I was there. I felt very valued doing this kind of work. Sometimes they even paid me. I loved the smell of the grease and the feel of it on the metal parts. I did have to wash it all off before going home, or there'd be hell to pay. Of course, there was often hell to pay anyway. Then they taught me to do many different things, and also how the pieces of the engine work together, and I loved that even more. At first I thought, this can't possibly work. And then I got the magic of it and loved using my maths to calculate the sizes and pressures with precision. I made myself useful in a lot of ways. I learnt so much. But of course it all had to end. Paul told on me. I think because they wouldn't let him join in. I pity the car that he would have had anything to do with. No girl should be in such a place, Mum said. And I sometimes think she thought there would be some kind of sexual goings on, as I was now 14. I was locked in my room, I refused to eat, my father tried to intervene, it didn't work. And the next step was to get me out of school on my 15th birthday. Girls don't need education, she shouted. This time the school tried to intervene. She's one of our brightest, but they also retired, defeated. If I wanted to stay in school, there was no chance of her letting me. I was made to take a job at the big local shop, sorting out goods and sometimes serving customers. The manager was my mum's friend, so he was always down on me. Getting even was the main thing on my mind. Instead, a different chance came along. I was on a break, lounging around with some of the other girls in the delivery area, when one of the vans stalled, trying to get out into the street, blocking anything trying to get in or out. They had the bonnet open and were tinkering, obviously not having a clue about what was going on. One engineer was on holiday, the other was sick, as he often was, with a hangover. It took a while until I sauntered over and nervously asked what was wrong. You wouldn't understand. I looked in, and as they tried to start it again, I recognised something. I didn't know this engine, but it was clear that the sound it was making suggested that the distributor was dirty, so I said so. They laughed. So I asked for a glove and a cloth, reached in, took the cap off, cleaned the rotor and put it back. Goodness gracious me. When they turned the key, it started. It's a shame girls don't understand anything, I said, and walked away.
Beautifully timed. Now, we would like to have something about Tirzah Garwood. Now, she's the artist who was born in Railway Street, opposite the train station. So, Lydia, would you like to read your piece? So this is page 75, isn't it? Lydia has lived in Medway since 2005. She has worked as a freelance translator, French and Spanish, for over 20 years. During the 2020 lockdown, she began to dabble in creative writing and has written a variety of short and long stories. And this is your first... Am I reading the wrong biography?
No, that's
yes.
correct.
Okay, sorry. Okay, and this is her first published writing. So a particular welcome for Lydia.
I looked at Tirzah Garwood's artworks and I just thought they were amazing. She did these lovely wood engravings and they're really quirky and unusual. She was married to the artist Eric Revilius, who's probably more well known. And so in some ways she was kind of in his shadow. But I loved her work, and I looked. The piece I wrote was inspired by this wood engraving that she did, which is called The Cat Wife. And so, oh yes, I also read her autobiography, so I found out quite a lot about her. It's a brilliant autobiography, really funny and really interesting life she had, which was edited by her daughter because she died quite young. So this is The Cat Wife. She curls up on the rug in front of the fire, her day's work done. The children are in bed, the kitchen tidy, the laundry neatly folded. She is weary, sick, and heartsore, living in this drafty old house with a never-ending stream of guests, the chatter, the dramas, the daily chores. No time for her to paint or etch, her woodblocks gathering dust under the bed. Her erstwhile husband returns. Where has he been? Out painting the hills and hedgerows? Or visiting his mistress? Free love is to be accepted, even expected, among artistic temperaments, he says. He sits down heavily in the armchair, resting his hands on the sides, a pensive expression on his face. His body creaks as he leans forward to ease his feet into his slippers. The fire is out, the embers nearly cold in the grate. He makes no move to pick up the bellows, shows no willingness to stoke the fire. Does he even notice her? The sleek, silent cat curled up on the rug, her long, slender legs tucked under her haunches, blending in with the domestic scene, making herself invisible. And yet, she is curiously contented, stretched out here by the fire. Tirzah, Tirzah, the third one, the quiet one, the one in the shadows. Wife, mother, helpmeet, observer, artist, writer. The schoolgirl running carefree over the Sussex Downs. The art student dazzling her tutor, sought after for her beautifully intricate yet disconcerting woodcuts. The lover, torn between middle-class respectability and the free life of an artist. The muse, collaborating on her husband's commissions and letting him bask in the glory. The wife, betrayed and betraying, loved and loving. The mother, cruelly widowed by a freak wartime accident. The mature artist, prolifically creative even as she lay dying. The optimist, surrounded by love, friends, and laughter. The cat wife, the unnoticed observer, the unseen sketcher. With her shrewd eye, searing honesty, and quirky tone, she is amused by the world and its inconsistencies, by the people in it, their eccentricities and foibles. One day, all these people will be long gone, long forgotten, but her words and her art will remain, etched and engraved for eternity. Thank you.
That is beautifully read. And just as a point of interest, taking as inspiration the poem, please notice that we do have a cat wife at the front of your poetry book. That was beautifully rendered by the artist Nicole Mollett, who was, of course, the woman who created those lovely murals. So I would like to recommend you do that. Right. So now, for the next woman, we're going to deal with Rosemary. And we've already had some lovely poems by Timothy. So Sarah March, if you'd like to read some of your story. And I'm just going to read out Sarah's biography. So Sarah has been writing short stories since she was a child, growing up in Walderslade. Her work is mostly a reflection of stories about her life or the people that she meets along the way. Because what is more interesting than people? Very good question. She recently retired to the Kentish countryside to hone her skills and seek yet more inspiration. So, Sarah, would you like to come to the stage?
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much to Sarah, who asked me to submit a piece for this wonderful book. At a time when I just wasn't thinking about writing anything at all. So it's got the old juices going again. So thanks ever so much to Sarah and for this wonderful evening tonight. So I'm going to read you halfway through my my story. I was attracted to Rosemary Tonks because I suppose very much like everybody else here tonight, I think you kind of empathise with somebody and you think, oh, yes, I've got something in common with that writer. And for me, she was an only child, she was quite spiritual. Obviously, she came from the Medway towns like I do. And she lived in Paris. So I lived in Paris quite, I think, probably 5 out of the 10 years of the 1980s. And here's a little story about something that happened then. However, there was a rather amusing occurrence in that flat, which took place when my friend Simon came to visit me from the Kentish suburbs. I had recently purchased a hamster as a way to make our little flat seem more homely. I guess I thought, going to stay there a while, we needed a hamster. We christened him Percy, after my godfather. Our landlady, Marie Odile, was a delightful lady who lived alone downstairs and would often come and chat with us. She seemed ancient to me at the time, but she must have been in her 40s. She was very kind and easygoing and delighted to be housing 2 young Anglaises. When I told Marie Odile that Simon was coming to stay on the sofa for a couple of nights, she was enchanted. She insisted on making him a pot au feu, which is a type of stew, to celebrate his arrival. The morning of Simon's visit, I had taken a couple of days off work before leaving to pick him up at the RER station in Robinson. I peered into Percy's cage to feed him before I left. No Percy. I hunted high and low for the little fella, but he was nowhere to be found. Later that evening, we all tucked into Marie Odile's delicious pot au feu. Simon, being a polite young man, asked Marie Odile the ingredients of the stew. We were horrified as she announced that one of the ingredients was persil, parsley pronounced persil. Horrified, we all hoped that we hadn't just eaten a boiled hamster.
Thank you very much. Now, the next piece we're going to have is, I was hoping someone would write something like this. It's by Marianne Sellen-Smith, and it's inspired by Rosemary Tonks. It's on page 106, and if you haven't read any of Rosemary's work, we do have copies of her poetry book available to borrow. So let's have a look now. So we have got Mary Ann Smith-Sellen's work has been recognised in both national and international competitions, including first prizes in 5 words, that's the Cork Poetry Festival, and Sentinel Literary Quarterly, and is also widely published and broadcast. She regularly reads at events and literary festivals in Kent and is currently working on her first collection. So please come to the stage.
I first came across Rosemary Tonks' work about 7 or 8 years ago, and I'd only been writing poetry myself for about 5 years. So I was completely captivated by it, and it really opened my eyes to the possibilities of language and subject matter. And I write mainly biographical poetry, and particularly about writers and artists. So I was very pleased to be able to return the favour to Rosemary for the inspiration by writing a poem that was in response to her life and her work. So this is called Tracks on a City Life, for and after Rosemary Tonks. You cannot sleep. Time swings its slow censer. Rain clatters still toe caps on rattling glass. Yesterday's crumpled thoughts lie strewn about, unfolded, because the drawer where they belong won't shut for something long stuck at the back. Born half orphan, half mourning herb, the full label flung around your neck too soon, too suddenly. What a strange, haphazard city the mind is. The old part huddled around its church of learned behaviour, that darkened house always to be run past, and both now hidden in a tangled web of odd, unplanned developments. If you are lost, compassless, with sun, moon, stars all unreachable, you must follow those tracks dropped at your feet by corvids, the scribble of the river, bells. No quick ascent to high hopes when lifts are broken. Instead, a long climb up flights of stairs where nicotine niches hit out at each turn, and old breath still huffs about on landings. Everything looks different in monochrome light. Cup rings, or the ghosts of burst bubbles blighting once vigorously polished wood. Try as you might, you cannot wash out the incense of rare things burning, nor shake from memory their smouldering ashes.
So the next one we have was about the marvellous Dr. Lorna Wing. She was the psychiatrist who pioneered the care for people who are on the autistic spectrum, was in fact the woman who coined the phrase the autistic spectrum. She was born in Gillingham and she attended school in Chatham Grammar for girls. So the next speaker is going to be Emma Howie, and this is her first time performing. So Emma Howie lives in Medway and has written from personal experience with autism, and this is her first published piece of writing on page 91. So Emma, please come to the stage.
I completely forgot in my biography that I've got a degree in English literature, which kind of does elements of creative writing. But my main aim is poetry, so here we go. For Dr. Lorna Wing, about the people you did this for. For Dr. Lorna Wing, about the people you did this for. A beautiful smudge of nature created you, as it created everyone, and underneath the shade of thy wings, an autistic spectrum sings, of routines in an inescapable world, full of noise and bright lights that overwhelm, and a society whose propriety mocks your anxiety, about social norms that seem to you a mystery, second-guessing every conversation, asking if you are really of God's creation. If you cannot look someone in the eye, you sigh and have questions, endless questions that scream why, or communicate in words at all. You echo the words of others, fixing language together like a broken jigsaw, of pretty words that repeat forevermore, of deep interests that take you away from the everyday. Some shun your neurodivergence, dismiss it as rudeness or ineptitude, bluntness, socially awkward, or just plain rude. I say everyone is a beautiful smudge of ineptitude. Everyone is a mark of nature that was created as an impressionist painter. When looked upon up close, looks fainter, like a smudge that makes up a picture of a person. But when looked on from far away, they are more than just a smudge. They are a beautiful picture created by God, not a series of dots but a whole, an imperfect template that nature stole. To make you whole and into the unique thinker that you are, for everyone is made of a sum of their parts, made of flaws and false starts, fallible human, an ink blot on a page, and all of us have an Achilles heel. That's what makes us human and makes us real. For Dr. Lorna Wing, you helped us see an autistic person is just a slightly different version of you and me.
That is marvellous. Thank you very much. Okay, so we've just got two final speakers for tonight. The evening is nearly over. So Jennifer is someone who ran the first talk, in fact, about Kathleen Courtney. And she also gave talks at some schools to encourage people, especially the children, to get involved with the project and to learn about these women. And let me see now, so we have got, Jennifer Godfrey is the author of Suffragettes of Kent, published by Pen and Sword Limited. She enjoys seeing the positive outcomes and empowerment of shared experiences and stories. Jennifer uses this approach with her research and writing, giving talks to as many as will listen. So Jennifer, please come on over.
Thank you. Just to say, I absolutely loved this project. I love talking and I love sharing stories, but also like to see the impact of those. So I'm just really grateful to you, Sarah, for involving me in the project. I think it's fabulous. I won't read the entire piece, just to say that my book, Suffragettes of Kent, although suffragettes is in the title, it does also cover suffragists. So suffragettes were the women that used hammers to smash windows, put tar in letterboxes and blew things up. So they broke the law. And suffragists tended to be law-abiding women that would lobby Parliament, chase down MPs, but they might have parlour talks. So they abided by the law. And Kathleen, she was a suffragist. She abided by the law. But during the talks, we did come across the difference between the two, and the young people and the children were really interested in that. So I did cover that a little bit as well. But this fantastic project, Circle of Six Women, it's brought to life the stories of 6 women with links to the Gillingham area of Medway. The local connection of all the women has generated interest and a desire to celebrate their incredible achievements. As I said, I had the privilege of being involved in this and loved to see the impact of it, and it was extremely positive for me and all of those that I encountered both in schools and libraries throughout the area. One of the 6 women was Kathleen, and she was, as I said, a suffragist, and I think that's how I got involved because her name's in my book. So that was great to have included her in there. As I said, we explored the difference between a suffragette and a suffragist. But there were other leading campaigners in their own field. So one of them was Verena Holmes, who she was similar. She became an engineer, but she, as we've already heard, actually had a rule where she'd only employ women. That raised quite a bit of discussion, actually, with some of the young people and children. They weren't sure about that and whether that would be correct, and it was really interesting to hear their views. The favourite story by far was the one of Sarah, the princess. We had them all standing in a line with pictures, and they would shout out different names for them to try and remember each of these women. And Princess Sarah was definitely the one they shouted the loudest. And there were also obviously lots of young aspiring writers and artists amongst the young people and children that I saw. And so they'd love to hear the stories of Rosemary and Eileen and all of that wood carving that we've already heard so much about. Lorna Wing's connection to autism and the National Autistic Society, well, that was incredible, actually. And I can remember being here in this actual building, and I was working with a school that specialises in the autism spectrum disorders and Asperger's syndrome. And one young person I remember offering up in front of everyone, which is incredibly brave and really important, actually, to say. She said, "We owe Lorna a lot. If it wasn't for her, we wouldn't have our school." And that really touched me, I have to say. That was one of the moments where I was really touched. You'll see on page 8 and 9 that I have included some quotes that young people talked about, and it was mainly about bringing to life the stories. We use different ways, depending on their age, maybe some colouring and some other activities to really engage with them. And I just want to read the final paragraph, really. This project has impacted on me as an individual, an author and a storyteller. The reaction of the audiences I've worked with has reinforced the power of advocating historical voices, especially where they have a local connection and or a characteristic that they can associate with. And I know a few people have said that here tonight, which is really good. I'm completely convinced that not only do we now have some newly published authors, but we also have some children, young people and adults inspired by these stories of 6 women to act on something they are passionate about. Maybe in 100 years' time, one of those impacted by this community project will have their journey shared with others in a similar fashion, their inspiration being having heard the stories of the Circle of 6. So thank you very much.
So we have one final speaker for tonight, and that will be Rachel. So Rachel, in the true circular nature of life, will be talking about Sarah. And so if you'd like to come and share. Rachel's earliest memory is lying at her mother's feet while her father drove them from North Wales to Suffolk, known as a moonlight flit. Subsequently, her fiction and poetry explored the themes of journey, trauma as nature. She moved to Chatham last year and works for Islington Libraries.
And I have to say, I've worked in libraries for 23 years, and I think Medway Libraries are leading the way. This is where all libraries should be going, definitely. and I have to say that the London Libraries, Southwark and Islington, I think get a lot more money, but it just shows you it's not just about money, it's about a whole load of other things. So, I'm very caught up in themes of the hidden. What was hidden was unfortunate, but a part of my experience of growing up. So the Medway, what is beneath the Medway, what is at the back of a book? Is it a receipt? What is behind the dynamics of any group? I do work in support work as well. So here we are, Francis's Flag. So this is another version of what I read from the life of Sarah. I am the voice of rage for women who have lost their liberty, their dignity and their freedom, for women who have been compelled to silence. Although I died long ago, my longing never died, nor my desire to escape. My rage is born of trauma, the same trauma of my mother and of all women, be their rage silent, be their rage loud. Our rage is against the injustice of women. This story begins with my mother. Just as livestock and women are viewed as property, so too was my orphan mother. She was a gift exchanged between a tribal king and the queen of an empire. Taken from her clan and country and given a different name, my mother was sent overseas to please the curiosities of an indolent queen. During a period of convalescence in a warmer country, my mother's care was entrusted to a missionary school. There, under the watchful eye of their god, she was raped by an errant priest, whereupon she became pregnant with me. Afraid, alone, and deemed a temptress by the missionaries, my mother's only means of redemption was to give away her newborn infant and to bury her secret forever. Nursed briefly by my mother, thereafter I was taken by the missionaries and placed in the care of an elderly nurse who travelled with me on a ship bound for Chatham. Upon my receipt at the ragged school, monies were exchanged, my name erased, and my birth papers falsified. All that was left to me was the Bible that my mother had stitched inside my suckling cloth, along with the notes secreted in its pages. I was never to see my mother again. By all accounts, duty-bound to follow the wishes of her patron, the Queen, my mother went on to live a prosperous life. I was named Ellen after my elderly nurse. From age 11, the ragged school sent me to work at the docks. There I would sweep the ropery floor, lift spindles, or climb underneath machines to clean them. Later I sewed in the sail and colour loft. Although my pleasures were few, I would decorate the chapel altar and collect flowers for pressing between the pages of my Bible. I would sew the flowers and the fine strands of rope and use these to make pieces of embroidery. As promised to my mother before her death, the elderly nurse returned. She shared with me the secrets of my birth and handed me the note that she had removed from my mother's Bible. It read, "My darling Adama, yes, this is your real name. Say it over and over, at the start and the finish of each day. Never forget it. For what I did, I am truly sorry. Please forgive me. I did not want to give you up and begged with the missionaries to keep you. They forced my hand. To survive, I had to make an impossible choice. The pain and secret of my loss, of our loss, will die with me. I give you my strength in all its forms to live in you, now and beyond the grave. My longing for you will never end. Your loving mother." I died childless and alone, and my young body was buried with my mother's Bible in an unmarked corner, beneath the fronds and poisonous berries of the yew. The world of longing lives in the unconscious shadow of memory, and the essence of memory is truth. Truth can be found in every cell, every sinew, every muscle, and every bone. And as the truth, trauma is also passed through the body of the mother to the body of the unborn child. Although I lost my mother, her truth, her trauma lived on in me. Patiently I have waited for that longing and my rage to live again, to be felt in the heart of another. Outside, the storm grew in strength. The waves hammered at the basin walls and the wooden supports of the ships creaked and shuddered. It was as if the slow, wide river was rising up to reclaim its waters and to set free the ships housed within. Inside the half-light of the colour and sail loft, 25 women, oblivious to the storm, attentively worked on. Each scrutinised the thread as it darted its way along the material and ran flat between their fingers and the sewing foot. As they did, their bodies rose, crested and fell, in unison with the waves of the river beyond. Each woman was industrious in her pursuit. While the spools of their machines turned, their lives turned passively also, all except one. Looking out at the storm was the face of Frances Adair.
Well, so there are all the speakers, but we can't let that be the last word. We have a piece called Bookshelves, which is on page 120, which nicely sums up the 6 women. And it's by a writer called Maggie Drury, so unfortunately cannot be here tonight. And I think it was chosen well for this one. Crammed together on the bookshelf opposite the sofa, spines facing out. Writer, journalist, adventurer, racers and rowers and round-the-worlders, high-flying women. And flickering on the television screen below, sportswomen with bats and rackets and balls of different shapes and sizes. They score, run, punch the air, embrace. Now the shelf will bow under the added weight of the achievements of women from Gillingham, rediscovered and celebrated. Artist, engineer, suffragist, novelist, psychiatrist, a list that includes a princess, no less, goddaughter to a queen. In a different space, balanced on a second-hand folding shelf, spines facing out, are novels and plays, poems and how-to-write guides. On desk, in drawers and cardboard folders, scribbled notes, certificates of courses completed, on file and memory sticks, the uncompleted lie waiting to be finished or deleted. Don't wait for inspiration. Put aside spelling and punctuation. Time is of the essence. Stop by the women not bending a shelf or flickering on the screen except in bad news, but queuing for a loaf of bread and a can of soup. Make space for them between princess and peace campaigner. Squeeze them in. Shine a light on their hard, bright covers with inside pages thumbed, corners folded, and headbands that bend but do not break. And if you burn writing, hold back one copy, not the first draft, not the last, but one from the middle to slot between second-hand thesaurus and Collins' English Gem Dictionary for future generations to discover. Worn, thumbed, folded, torn, crumpled, but not crushed. As you can see and hear, that was an extraordinary range of work, from poems to stories, from first-time writers to people who've written well and often. So there is a lot more to discover, and hopefully you'll be writing your own pieces. I look forward to reading them. So before we go, I just want to say thank you. These talks will all be available to watch on YouTube, and we will make sure that we have copies available at our archive centre in Strood. I would like you to encourage friends to read the book and send in some book reviews as well. And of course, remember, we've got the children's book in October coming out. I would like to extend a special thanks to all of our speakers tonight. You read and performed beautifully. You spoke from the heart. I'd like to say thank you to the staff, to Sharon and to Sophia, and to Piers. And I would like to say a special thank you to Maria and Bob, who did such an extraordinary job of editing the book. Thank you everyone tonight, and thank you for watching.
I just wanted to say it's really done my heart good to hear everybody's work. These pieces were sent to me anonymously, and to see the names put to the work, and then to see the faces put to those names, has been really marvellous. And I would really like it if those contributors that are here sign my copy of the book. And thank you, Sarah. And I think a big round of applause to Sarah for all the work she's done on this project.